everyone. We know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our show, ILTV's Weekly Review, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right here from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed. David Friedman has now made history by officially becoming the first foreign envoy appointed by U.S. President Donald Trump to take up his new post as ambassador to Israel. The oath of office was administered by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who stressed his boss's deep commitment to the Jewish state.
The President of the United States of America is a lifelong friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And under his leadership, if the world knows nothing else, the world will know this: America stands with Israel.
Pence also hailed Trump's decision to appoint his 57-year-old bankruptcy lawyer and longtime friend to the post despite his lack of diplomatic experience. Friedman has been very involved with Israel for many years.
He's been quick to rise to Israel's defense from those who would condemn her, because in your heart you know that those that hate Israel not for what she does wrong, but for what she does right. David, your record of compassion and care for Israel and her people is an inspiration to the President and an inspiration to us all.
Now, Friedman was only narrowly confirmed by a Senate vote of 52 to 46. That level of opposition is actually pretty unusual. Most nominees to become the face of the administration between the two close allies have traditionally been approved without objection. Friedman, however, was controversial due to his past investments in the settlement enterprise, as well as his alignment with the Israeli right. He also strongly favors moving America's embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is a sensitive position since it would imply recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the city, which is disputed by the Palestinians.
My thanks to President Trump for his courageous leadership, his friendship, and his guidance. I am humbled by the trust he has placed in me, and I will do everything that I can to justify his faith and confidence in my abilities. I'm very proud to say that my nomination represents the first time in American history that the U.S. ambassador to Israel was nominated by the President as early as the first day of his presidency. I was nominated on January 20th. On Inauguration Day. I'm equally proud to say that this is the first time in American history that the U.S. ambassador to Israel was the first ambassador approved by the Senate and given the oath of office. Those facts speak volumes about how highly the Trump-Pence administration prioritizes our unbreakable bond with the State of Israel.
Friedman took the oath as his wife Tammy, the couple's 5 children, and most of their grandchildren looked on. Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer, also attended the ceremony. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's very much looking forward to receiving the new U.S. ambassador in Jerusalem. Leaders at the 28th Arab League Summit are making headlines today. They're repeating their offer to get the Arab world to recognize a Jewish state if Israel fully withdraws from all land over the 1967 lines. Most of the Arab leaders are divided over a number of regional issues such as the Syrian civil war. But they've reached common ground on the creation of a Palestinian state based on the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative. And they're rejecting any changes to the proposal as called for by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Arab leaders also voiced sharp criticism of Israel's building of Jewish homes in the West Bank.
تستمر إسرائيل في توسيع الاستيطان وفي العمل على تقويض فرص تحقيق السلام. ولا سلام ولا استقرار في المنطقة دون حل عادل وشامل للقضية الفلسطينية. القضية المركزية في الشرق الأوسط من خلال حل الدولتين.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has declared the summit is a resounding success. He says the Arab leaders will convey their united stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict during upcoming meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump. The American leader surprised the Arab world on February 15th when he said that he doesn't necessarily support a two-state solution while standing alongside the Israeli premier. At the Arab summit, several European diplomats took the opportunity to reaffirm their own commitment to a Palestinian state.
A just and lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. This is and will continue to be a top priority for the European Union. A peaceful solution of this conflict, or even progress in that direction, could set a whole new paradigm for cooperation in the region, including on security. We firmly believe that the two-state solution remains the only realistic way to end the conflict and all claims. We would recognize changes to the 67 lines only when agreed by the parties, including with regard to Jerusalem.
Jordan is hosting the annual 22 Arab state gathering on its side of the Dead Sea, right across from Israel. Israel has announced that it will cut its required payment to the United Nations by $2 million, and it's all because of a spat of recent anti-Israel votes. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story. Aaron, what is the Israeli government thinking? Tell us about this.
Essentially, the Israeli government is thinking the same thing it was thinking when it passed legislation banning BDS activists from entering the country. The ideology is, I'm not going to fund something that is actively attacking me. Why pay for my own destruction, you know? And the UN is a perfect example of that. The UN Human Rights Council, for example, has passed over 60 resolutions since its founding in 2006 just against Israel, which is more than any other country combined.
Well, let's check out your report.
The General Assembly requires that all 193 member states pay a percentage of the United Nations budget based on their GDP. Failure to do so would cause a member state to lose its vote in the General Assembly. Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon has said that the $2 million will instead be used for developmental projects in countries that support Israel in the international arena. Israel has already cut close to $6 million from its contribution of $11.7 million following a UN resolution passed in December condemning Israel's settlement building in the occupied territories. Last week, United Nations Special Rapporteur to the Palestinian Territories Michael Lynk charged Israel with the subjugation of Palestinians' humanity and claimed that Israel had been cracking down on human rights campaigners. The claims were presented in a report given to the UN Human Rights Council during the Geneva-based organization's mandated session on Israel, otherwise known as Agenda Item 7. Israel is the only country targeted with a dedicated UNHRC agenda item. United States Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has publicly threatened to withdraw from the Council over its biased agenda item against Israel.
Talk that Washington might move its embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv is reviving after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence told an enthusiastic crowd of Israel supporters that U.S. President Donald Trump is still seriously thinking about the matter. The second in command made this spirited statement at the annual policy conference of the AIPAC American-Israel Public Affairs Committee.
And under President Donald Trump, if the world knows nothing else, the world will know this: America stands with Israel. And know this, after decades of simply talking about it, the President of the United States is giving serious consideration to moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Even though U.S. President Donald Trump often spoke about relocating the embassy while he was running for office, the contentious issue has been moved to the back burner since his election. Israel regards Jerusalem as its eternal and indivisible capital and wants all countries to base their embassies there. But many U.S. allies strongly oppose the move because the Palestinians also lay claim to the city as the capital of their future state. A U.S. embassy move would be seen as an explicit recognition of Israeli sovereignty and might predetermine the outcome of any eventual peace negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. But nevertheless, Trump's pick as a next ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, strongly favors moving the diplomatic compound to Jerusalem, and his appointment was just confirmed by the U.S. Senate. In the meantime, the U.S. Vice President took advantage of his speech at AIPAC to take aim at extremist Islamic terror.
And in President Trump, America has a leader who will call our enemies by their name. Just last week in London, in the shadow of Parliament, radical Islamic terrorism reared its ugly head, claiming the lives of innocent civilians, including an American. At this very moment, our administration is crafting plans to defeat radical Islamic terrorism so it can no longer bring violence to our enemies, to our allies, or inspire violence here at home. And let me be clear, President Trump is working with our military. And the American people can know this. We will hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source so it can no longer threaten our people, our allies, or our most cherished ally, Israel.
The assassination of a top Hamas leader in the Gaza Strip last week has raised tensions between Israel and Hamas. Mazen Fakawa was a convicted terrorist released by Israel in the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange and was then exiled to Gaza. Yet from the coastal enclave, he continued to plan terror attacks in the West Bank. While Hamas is quick to blame Israel for the killing, Times of Israel-Palestinian Affairs reporter Dov Lieber told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that the total silence from the Palestinian Authority could point in another direction.
But what's interesting is that the Palestinian Authority has said nothing on the matter. Zero. Total silence from their side. A Hamas leader is killed, not a word.
Not condemning it.
Not condemning, nothing. No words.
This Fakha was a security prisoner in Israel. He was released as part of the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange deal. How did he wind up in Gaza?
Israel put him there.
So we did not let him go back to his home in the West
Exactly.
Bank. We sent him back to Gaza. And there is no doubt that he has been involved, has returned to the ways of terrorism.
Look, I haven't seen any proof of that, or...
Nobody's denying it.
I've just seen reports that say he was supposedly a part of this, a leader of a cell that plans attacks in the West Bank. But no, Israel obviously isn't going to put out any evidence of that. Because why would they put out evidence to say, oh, we killed this guy and here's the evidence? No. So currently we're just working off what we knew before. But Hamas hasn't had many successful attacks in the West Bank previous. Like you could put them on one hand. So for me, it's difficult to understand what exactly they're blaming it for. Now, it was last week the head of the Shin Bet, Israel's internal security agency, that said that Israel has stopped numerous attacks in the West Bank. It's highly possible that this guy was responsible for planning attacks.
Hamas leadership traditionally has feared. If they fear anything, they fear liquidation of their leaders, targeted assassinations of their leaders. It's something that at all costs they try to prevent, not by being able to physically prevent them, but by arranging some kind of an understanding with Israel that you don't cross that line. Would they be going into hiding at this point?
Well, their two main leaders, Ismail Hani and Yahya Sinwar, were at a funeral publicly in Gaza yesterday. But I'm sure there's probably some fear because they really do think it's Israel, I think. And if so, they maybe, the game is on. Israel is not afraid to assassinate their leaders in the Strip, so they'll probably have to take precaution to avoid
Sinwar, he's new as the leader of Hamas in Gaza. He's known as very much of a hardliner. He's going to have to respond, won't he?
Right, this is really a big test for Yahya Sinwar, who's known as a hardline militant. He's known as extremely militant already within a terrorist group. So, and he's not somebody who would
look the other way.
Look the other way, exactly. So this is a real test for him as a leader. I'm sure the Israeli security agencies are watching very closely what he says, how he responds. So far, he hasn't said anything. He's let his deputy speak for him, which is very interesting.
American politicians don't seem to agree on much these days, but if there's one issue on which there is total bipartisan consensus, it's that the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign against Israel must be stopped. Both Democratic and Republican leaders in the House and Senate have introduced new legislation to penalize any foreign countries or international government organizations engaging in the hate movement. Once it's passed, the new anti-BDS law would impose fines on offenders, and the Export-Import Bank would also examine whether credit applicants have ties to the boycott campaign against the Jewish state. Lawmakers who've submitted the bill say the U.S. will not stand idly by when BDS tactics are used to isolate one of the nation's key allies. The legislation also formally states Capitol Hill's opposition to the UNHRC's declared intent of creating a blacklist of companies doing business with Israeli settlements. The latest efforts follow earlier Senate approval of 2 other bills demanding a halt in U.S. funding of the United Nations, until the UN repeals resolution that very controversial measure called all Israeli construction in the West Bank and East Jerusalem illegal.
Yet another American Jewish facility has been evacuated after becoming the target of yet another bomb threat. Interestingly, the incident came after Israel arrested a teenager suspected of perpetrating most of the 120-plus fake attacks that have been plaguing the community for months. The Aaron family JCC in Dallas, Texas was evacuated after receiving a threatening telephone call on Thursday. That's the same MO allegedly used by the suspect in Israel, but he'd already been behind bars for several hours at the time of the latest incident. The Dallas center was closed during a search of the premises, but regular activity resumed within a short time. The same building was targeted by 2 previous threats. One prompted a similar evacuation in January, but the other hoax came by email earlier this month. It was only discovered several days after being sent in the computer spam folder, so no action was taken. Looks like that threat didn't come close to causing the kind of panic the perpetrator was hoping for. All right, the cannabis industry is taking over the world, and this week ILTV's Aaron Porras and I got an inside look from right here in Israel. Let's check it out. This is Canatech, one of the leading cannabis innovation events in the world.
And the amazing thing is it's right here in the startup nation of Israel, the heartland of innovation.
Well, luckily we've brought our resident marijuana expert Aaron Porras with us here today.
And I'm here to find free samples. Let the hunt begin.
Let the hunt begin. When you think about your average marijuana joint, you're probably not thinking about science. But there are over 779 known strains of cannabis in the world. Marijuana dispenser, cannabis dispenser, yes, this machine exists for you to just press a button and out comes your weed.
You can choose, you can search by category.
$1?
Yes, it's a promotion for the exposition.
All right, there's nothing right now, guys, nothing to look. Oh! Is this for me?
Yes, it's for you, but unfortunately it's empty.
Wow, wow. All right, next time, I'll make sure to find one of these machines around Israel. Each strain of marijuana can be used for a different purpose, whether it's medical, recreational, or even cosmetic. French-Israeli entrepreneur Oliver Sasson uses these crazy pipes to make cannabis oil.
Most of people would like to use this oil for medical purposes, but there is many other applications like cosmetic and for beauty or for skincare.
How does that work?
Cannabis works in a special way on the cells of the face. It shrinks the cells, so it makes your skin smoother. Yeah.
Interesting. I might need to start using some on my face.
Now it's time to start thinking about money when you think marijuana, because the cannabis economy is the fastest growing global industry on the planet right now. In fact, the legal cannabis market is projected to create over 250,000 jobs by 2020, and so it's no wonder that Israel is at the center of it.
All right, now I don't know what this machine is, but it looks like something that I would want to take home. Turns out it's an auto-grow machine developed by the Israeli company Cedo. In other words, the device automatically grows your marijuana plant after you simply place a seed inside of it.
The only thing you do have to do is to come back for the harvest 3 months after the plant is ready.
In Israel, it all started with medicine. The Jewish state is actually one of the first modern nations to investigate the medical benefits of cannabis, which is why so many international companies reach out to the Jewish state for advice.
What we have not got in Europe right now is the real information about the effects of different cannabinoids of marijuana to various illnesses.
Israel is the
the nexus for cannabis innovation, right? This is where everybody comes because this is where all the good stuff is happening. In the United States, we don't have clinical trials. We can't even really do research, right? So if you want to get anything done, you got to come here to do it.
Leah Halfbaum is an Orthodox Jew living all the way in Hebron, and she came to Canatech to share how cannabis has helped her autistic son. Their family neurologist has actually started the first cannabis autism study in the world at Israel's Sha'arei Tzedek Hospital.
It's important to me because I really feel that it's been a game changer in my son's life, and it's really turned his whole life around. It stopped his epilepsy, his epileptic seizures. It's made him into a different person, and I want to help that become a possibility for other families.
For many of the people at Canatech, it's all about changing the taboo behind marijuana.
It's unfortunate that we have demonized it the way we have, because it's really part of our history, right? It's been part of our evolution.
If you look at the populations of the Western world, such a high percentage of those people are using marijuana recreationally. If they're doing something that is of no harm to anybody, people should have the liberty to make that choice. There's some real science going into and great results coming out of that science about medical marijuana. It's a groundbreaking time in a groundbreaking industry, and we are here to share in that and to experience it and to learn from it.
Well, Aaron, I will certainly always remember that experience. I think it's going to be impossible to forget. Aaron, what was your favorite part?
You mean besides the Munchies buffet? No, I'm just kidding. Like,
that is true. Nobody saw that. There was a crazy, crazy display of food there. It was awesome.
I was mostly impressed, honestly, by just the incredible business and industry that has erupted from a plant. You know, we saw entrepreneurs, we saw biologists, doctors, inventors, farmers, so many, pharmaceutical reps and legal experts from all over the world. It was really incredible.
What was interesting is that they were all also coming here to Israel, because you would never expect that Israel, this tiny country, would be such a leader in the cannabis world, but it all comes down to the science behind it. I mean, a lot of other countries want the facts. I want the statistics. I want the information about, what cannabis does to the body, and Israel's really leading in that sense. I mean, I remember seeing that woman you guys saw in the piece that we did, this Orthodox religious woman who lives in Hebron, who was treating her autistic son with marijuana, and she was there, and it was just so interesting to see such a diverse crowd.
These are not the typical potheads, that
oh, absolutely not.
And
I think that taboo really needs to, we need to get rid of that. It needs to change. All right. We all know what it's like to be embarrassed by a parent, and if you've ever wanted your dad to take it down a notch on the dance floor, then you might find it hard to watch this video. ILTV's Joy Gavijon has the details. Joy?
Hi, well, actually this is made up by the organization Jewish Women's Renaissance Project.
It's quite a name.
Yeah, that's quite a name. That has brought 10,000 Jewish mothers to the Holy Land in their trips. And right now they started to bring fathers also. And almost 1,000 fathers came already. Yeah, and I couldn't stop laughing when I saw this video that you're about to see.
And I'm just glad my dad didn't hear about this project, because he's visiting right now, and I don't know if I would...
I'm glad too.
Your father's visiting also. All right, so we both looked out on this one. Let's check out this video of some crazy dancing dads.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights, when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of ILTV's Weekly Review. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.